Hmm. Okay. Thank you. And Farah, please give me your phone number because I don't have your phone number. And then the rest, guys, today actually I'm not doing any lecture. By tomorrow, we will do the lecture. I'm not quite feeling well today actually, but we have to conduct the class also because this is the last week. No more replacement class. Okay. Uh, so by today, for 1 hour, I will play the video. Actually, the video I think we already see, but it's okay because the topic is about ergonomic. Okay, my schedule for today should be the ergonomic, but that one I will cover uh, by tomorrow, guys. Okay, and then by Friday, okay, we will go for the uh, coursework assessment. Okay, on Friday. Okay, so today you just go with the video, quite easy. Just look into the video, watch the video, and tomorrow we will do the lecture again, and then Friday we go for the coursework assessment, feedback, guys. Okay, so let me share the video first.
Welcome to iEducator. This is Teacher Jeff. I'm an educator and an engineer by profession. And today we will discuss Chapter 1. And Chapter 1 is all about the introduction to ergonomics. And today, I will be highlighting four key areas as our topic outline. First is the focus of ergonomics. Second is the disciplines associated with ergonomics. Third is the brief history of ergonomics. And lastly, the ergonomics domains of specialization. Whether you're an ergonomics professional or you're new to the field, it's actually helpful every once in a while to take a broad view of what ergonomics is and how its fundamental principles can be applied. At the very least, you'll be able to explain what ergonomics is in a social setting. At the very best, you'll start to see how deeply the field of ergonomics impacts your words at work, at home, and the places in between. Today, we will discuss or tackle the focus of ergonomics first. Now, what is meant by ergonomics? Ergonomics, according to International Ergonomics Association, it is defined as the scientific discipline concerned with the understanding of interactions among humans and other elements of a system, and the profession that applies theory, principles, data, and methods to design in order to optimize human well-being and overall system performance. If we see scientific discipline, it means that ergonomics is a branch of scientific knowledge. And if we see concerned with the understanding of interactions among humans and other elements of a system, it means that it is concerned with how humans interact with the tools and equipment they use while performing tasks and other activities. Now, ergonomics comes from the Greek words ergon, which means work, and nomos, which means laws. So, literally speaking, ergonomics means the laws of work or the science of work. Now, the workplace is not the only place to think about when considering ergonomics. Many hobbies and everyday activities performed outside of the workplace can be sources of ergonomic stressors. One example would be home computing or gaming. Now, many people these days use their computer or gaming console at home to unwind. But these pursuits at home can provide just as much opportunity for static and awkward postures as you can see on the first picture. If you are a console gamer, remember to take breaks and shift position regularly, as you can see on the second picture, from sitting to standing position. Or if not, you could just sit directly in front of the screen, preferably at a distance where you can view the entire screen at one time with your neck in a neutral position. The head should not be tilted backward, forward, or twisted to the side, just like what you can see in the first picture, which is the wrong way. This is exactly the wrong way because you can get musculoskeletal disorder or MSD. Another example that would be handheld devices. Now, many people are spending more and more time with their tablets and smartphones, but these are not free of ergonomic stressor. As you can see in the first photo, the man is flexing his neck and head to look at his device in the lap, which is obviously wrong because it requires isometric contraction of neck extensor muscles to hold the head in an imbalanced posture. If we continue to do this, then most likely we will experience a strain on the neck, and therefore, the right posture or position should be on the second image. We should bring the device up to the eye level because doing it would relieve the stress on our neck. Now, another example that would be gardening. Now, gardening can be hard on the body due to the propensity for prolonged awkward postures. And in general, good ergonomics basics should be remembered while gardening. We need to keep work close to you, take frequent rest breaks, maintain neutral postures whenever possible, and use the proper tools just like as shown on the slide presentation. And another topic we have, workplace ergonomics. Remember, workplace design is the science of designing the workplace, keeping in mind the capabilities and limitations of the workers. Now, when we design the workplace, it should be the best design possible because if not, then poor worksite design leads to fatigued, frustrated, and hurting employees. And because of this, we should not expect our workers to be productive. And more likely, it leads to a painful and costly injury, lower productivity, and poor product quality. Now, the first example that we have that is evident in workplace ergonomics, that would be material handling. As you can see on our first example, it is an example of material handling, or simply how materials are being moved, stored, protected, and controlled throughout the manufacturing, warehousing, distribution, consumption, and disposal. As you can see in the sample pictures, material handling in this case incorporated manual process, which is quite hazardous not only to the product, but also to the workers themselves. Workers may experience musculoskeletal disorders or MSDs for lifting heavy materials. And because they have MSDs, this will make them easily get stressed and fatigued. And because of stress and employee fatigue, this will eventually result to employee absenteeism. And because of absenteeism, they will most likely get demotivated returning back to work. And so for this matter, this will increase our employee turnover, okay? And the second example that is evident in the workplace ergonomics, that would be work height positioning. As you can notice in the first picture, the worker rather is working on the floor, which can be hazardous to the part of the worker because workers may get back pain. Now, in order to improve this, we need to ensure that workers are working at the right height. Okay? So another example of workplace ergonomics is the tools and materials used by the operators in carrying out their tasks. As you can see on the picture or in the example given, in the first image, the operator is using a wooden step stool, which is actually prone to accident because if in case there's a broken part of the step stool without the knowledge of the operator, then it can cause either injury or death of the employee. And so therefore, this is a violation to ergonomics. So we should use an ANSI or American National Standards Institute approved step stool, which you can see at the right portion or in the second image, okay? So these are a brief overview of ergonomics, and these are just some of the many examples of ergonomics at home and at work. And so for this matter, in order to remove risk factors which will lead to MSDs or injuries and allow for improved human or operator performance and productivity, we should implement a home ergonomics or workplace ergonomics improvement process. Now, by making improvements to the work process, we are actually removing barriers to maximum safe work performance. We are also providing our workers with a job that is within their body's capabilities and limitations. Now, if this ergonomics improvement process is done well, then it can be a key contributor to our company's competitiveness in the marketplace and provide a better work experience for the people. And next, if we say the profession that applies theory, principles, data, and methods to design in order to optimize human well-being and overall systems performance, it means that ergonomics draws on many disciplines to optimize the interaction between the work environment and the worker. These disciplines are the following. So we have anthropometry, biomechanics, industrial engineering, industrial design, information design, kinesiology, physiology, and lastly, we have psychology. So we will discuss the first discipline associated with ergonomics, and that would be anthropometry. Now, when we see anthropometry, it refers to the physical measurement of the human body. Now, according to Ciro Romelio Rodriguez Anyez of 2001, since ergonomics is the science of work, of the people who do it, and the way it is done, the tools and equipment they use, the places they work in, and the physiological aspects of the working environment. Therefore, anthropometry helps design to fit body sizes of the users, appropriate working levels, adequate workspace, and it also helps avoid overcrowding of machines and workers. Now, the second discipline that is associated with ergonomics, that would be biomechanics. Now, according to Hack and Cooper 2015, in their journal entitled Ergonomics, Biomechanics, and MSDs, a review, biomechanics is the study of the structural elements of the human body in relation to how the body functions and how much stress acceleration, and impact it can stand. Now, presently, the total energy demanded from a person in the performance of an industrial task has often been drastically reduced through better engineering and technology. What I mean about this is that most companies nowadays are already employing automation in their production processes. Despite this, stress may be created in small components of the worker's anatomy. Ergonomists use information about the functional anatomy of the living body to eliminate, reduce, or manage such stresses. And so, for this matter, biomechanics is important in ergonomics because it looks into appropriate work postures, such as sitting and standing. It also looks into safe load lifting and carrying techniques. And lastly, it also looks into adapting proper techniques in manual material handling process. Now, aside from biomechanics, we also have industrial engineering. Now, another discipline where ergonomics is very useful is industrial engineering. Now, we know for a fact that all engineers work in planning, designing, implementing, and controlling the systems that enable people to use technology, right? However, industrial engineers in turn design systems. And when I say we design systems, it means that industrial engineers help in the design of machines, the design of production processes, and design of management systems, and the design of workstations or production layout. In fact, the industrial engineer has a dual role. First, to extend the human capability to operate, manage, and control the overall production systems. And the second is to ensure the safety and well-being of those working in the system. And that is why we help companies in the elimination of risk factors associated in the environment or working environments. And aside from the other disciplines mentioned, we also have industrial design. Now, according to Industrial Designers Society of America, industrial design, or ID, is the professional service of creating and developing concepts and specifications that optimize the function, value, and appearance of products and systems for the mutual benefit of both user and manufacturer. Having said that, industrial design looks into the aesthetics of the mass-produced product. It also looks into the usability of the product in a way that provides ease and convenience to the users. And since industrial design is concerned with the human aspects of machine-made products and their relationship to people and the environment, that is where ergonomics comes up. Industrial design looks at human behavior, meaning how the workers behave in terms of the tools and materials that they use in carrying out their tasks. Aside from that, it also looks into man-machine interface, or how comfortable the operators are with the machines and equipment that they are using. If the height of the machine is too low or too high, or just proportionate to the height of the operators. And lastly, it is also concerned with the general working environment of the operator. And another discipline that applies ergonomic principles is the information design. Businesses nowadays are concerned about the message, right? Car dealers like Suzuki and Toyota are actually trying to convince us to come down and look. Area health clubs like Anytime Fitness and Gold's Gym are also trying to convince us to experience their facilities. And the retailers like SM Mall and Pure Gold are trying to convince us to buy their wares. In a fast-paced world such as ours, there are only a few precious seconds to get the message across. So how do we do it? How do we quickly convince us to do whatever it is that they want? There is no simple answer actually, as we each are driven by different things, but there are some common elements to be considered. Information design is the area that deals with these things, and human factors the specific topic. So what are human factors then? When we say human factors, these are the ways in which we interact with the objects or people. In other words, our senses, the sight, the hearing, touch, smell, and taste. Therefore, ergonomics is applicable in information design because information design is the process of presenting information in a manner such that it can be understood immediately. And often, because of our dependence on eyesight, this is visual, but it isn't necessary. Radio commercials, as an example, don't have a visual component. You hear a voice or voices along with background sounds that give the impression of a specific setting. Similarly, taste tests usually don't involve a visual component. Some even use blindfolds to remove any visual bias. In each of these cases, information design promotes the message in the form that most efficiently gets the meaning across. Okay, next we have kinesiology. Kinesiology involves the study of muscle movement and physical activity. When we say kinesiology and ergonomics, kinesiology and ergonomics come together in the design process as ergonomics is concerned with the human body's performance as it relates to the physical environment. When applied in the workplace, the goal of kinesiology is to prevent workplace injury and improve human-machine interaction. In fact, an employer may employ a kinesiologist to assist in workplace wellness as part of a comprehensive workplace wellness program. A kinesiologist may be responsible for creating a wellness space within the workplace, leading stretch and exercise programs, and providing on-site rehabilitative services. Another discipline that has ergonomics application is work physiology. Human factors and ergonomics is the application of physiological principles to the engineering and design of products, processes, and systems. And so for this matter, physiology helps control excessive physical loads. It also helps avoid physical and muscular fatigue. It helps adequate rest pauses, and it also helps arrangement of static and dynamic work. And lastly, we have psychology. As we all know, psychology is the science of mind and behavior, and therefore, it helps avoid perceptual and mental load fatigue, especially on the side of our operators or employees. Aside from that, appropriate design of displays and control, appropriate conditions for vigilance tasks, avoid human error and stress, and also it helps job motivation and satisfaction. And so these are the disciplines that are applicable in ergonomics, okay, or have direct relationship to ergonomics. Okay, so what is meant by ergonomics? Ergonomics is also synonymous with human factors engineering. Now, as you can see on the tabulation, we have human factors and engineering. As you can notice, we have a listing of different topics that are covered under human factors and in engineering. Now, the main goal, take note, the main goal of human factors is to reduce costs, improve productivity, improve quality, improve employee engagement, and create a better safety culture. Now, some of the listings under human factors, we have physical and mental work capacity, fatigue, body forces, strength and posture, body sizes, thermal comfort, heat or stress or cold stress, vision, and so on and so forth. Okay, these are examples of human factors. And on the engineering side, examples would be industrial design, workplace design, product design, furniture design, machine design, ventilation, lighting, acoustics, and so on and so forth. Okay, so next, a key area that I'm going to be discussing or highlighting to you today, that would be the history of ergonomics. Now, as you can see on the presentation, in ancient societies, some have stated that human ergonomics began with the Australopithecus prometheus, or also known as the little foot, a primate who created handheld tools out of different types of stones, clearly distinguishing between tools based on their ability to perform designated tasks. Now, the foundations of the science of ergonomics appear to have been laid within the context of the culture of ancient Greece. A good deal of evidence indicates that Greek civilization in the 5th century BC used ergonomics principles in the design of their tools, jobs, and workplaces. And one outstanding example of this can be found in the description Hippocrates gave of how a surgeon's workplace should be designed and how the tools he uses should be arranged. In industrial societies, Bernardino Ramazzini was one of the first people to systematically study the illness that resulted from work, earning himself the nickname as the father of occupational medicine. Now, in the late 1600s and early 1700s, Ramazzini visited many work sites where he documented the movement of laborers and spoke to them about their ailments. Now, in 1857, Wojciech Jatrzybowski, a Polish scientist, inventor, naturalist, and professor, was the one who coined the word ergonomics. It was first used in the magazine Nature and Industry. In his article, Ergonomics in Sketch or Theory of Work Based on Laws Derived from Nature. And in the 19th century, Frederick W. Taylor pioneered the scientific management, a method which proposed a way to find the optimum method of carrying out a given task. Now, Taylor found that he could, for example, triple the amount of coal that workers were shoveling by incrementally reducing the size and weight of coal shovels until the fastest shoveling rate was reached. Frank and Lillian Gilbreth expanded then Taylor's methods in the early 1900s to develop time and motion study. They aimed to improve efficiency by eliminating unnecessary steps and actions. However, this approach was rejected by Russian researchers who focused on the well-being of the worker. At the first conference on scientific organization of labor, Bekhterev and Myasishev criticized Taylorism. Bekhterev argued that the ultimate ideal of the labor problem is not in Taylorism, but is in such organization of labor process that would yield a maximum of efficiency coupled with a minimum of health hazards, absence of fatigue, and a guarantee of the sound health and all-round personal development of the working people. Now, World War II marked the development of new complex machines and weaponry, and this made new demands on operators' cognition. It was no longer possible to adapt the Tayloristic principle of matching individuals to pre-existing jobs. Now, the design of equipment had to take into account human limitations and take advantage of human capabilities. All right, so this is just a brief history of ergonomics, how it started, and who the proponents are as well. Okay, moving on to our next key area, that would be ergonomics domains of specialization. Now, the ergonomics is composed of 3 domains. First is the physical ergonomics. Second is the cognitive ergonomics. Third is the organizational ergonomics. So first, let us discuss what physical ergonomics is. If we say physical ergonomics, it is concerned with the human anatomical, anthropometric, physiological, and biomechanical characteristics as they relate to physical activity. Now, when we say physical ergonomics, this is the ergonomics domain we are most concerned with in the workplace. And most of the content on this side is very much focused on workplace ergonomics. And workplace ergonomics is about fitting workplace conditions and job demands to the capabilities of working population. When jobs are designed to match the capabilities of people, it results in better work being produced and a better experience for the person doing it. Now, the benefits of workplace ergonomics, that would be cost reduction, productivity improvement, quality improvement, employee engagement improvement, and we also have the creation of a better safety culture. Okay, why is it that reduces cost is considered to be as one of the benefits of workplace ergonomics? Now, one of the benefits of workplace ergonomics is the cost reduction. Now, the question is, how can we reduce the cost then? Well, we can reduce the cost by systematically reducing ergonomic risk factors. If we do this, then we can prevent the costly musculoskeletal disorders with approximately $1 out of every $3 in workers' compensation costs attributed to musculoskeletal disorders. This represents an opportunity for significant cost savings. Also, one of the benefits of workplace ergonomics is improves productivity. It will improve productivity by designing a job to allow for good posture, less exertion, fewer motions, and better heights and reaches. The workstation becomes more efficient. And next, we have improves quality. Remember, the poor ergonomics leads to frustrated and fatigued workers that don't do their best work, right? When the job task is too physically taxing on the worker, they may not perform their job like they were trained. For example, an employee might not fasten a screw tight enough due to a high force requirement, which could create a product quality issue. Okay? So the next benefit that would be improves employee engagement. Note, employees notice when the company is putting forth their best efforts to ensure their health and safety. If an employee does not experience fatigue and discomfort during their workday, it can reduce turnover, it can decrease absenteeism, and it can improve morale and increase employee involvement as well. Now, the last benefit of workplace ergonomics that would be creates a better safety culture. Ergonomics shows your company's commitment to safety and health as a core value. The cumulative effect of the previous 4 benefits of ergonomics is a stronger safety culture for your company. Remember, healthy employees are your most valuable asset. Creating and fostering the safety and health culture at your company will lead to a better human performance for your organization. Okay, so these are the benefits of workplace ergonomics. And we also have workplace ergonomics process. How do we go about with workplace ergonomics process? Now, a proactive ergonomics process identifies ergonomics risk factors and then reduces them through engineering and administrative controls before an injury occurs. Now, conducting an ergonomics risk assessment in response to an injury isn't a bad thing to do. In fact, it's what you should do. But there's a reactive approach. And if you keep doing what you're doing, then you're going to keep getting out in front of the problem by being proactive. Remember that above all else, a world-class ergonomics program is proactive and viewed as a strategic, continuous improvement process that makes a positive impact on the entire business. In other words, ergonomics shouldn't be an afterthought. If your ergonomics program is in reactive mode, it will only have a marginal impact on your facility at best. Now, here is a deeper dive into the ergonomics improvement process we usually implement. Okay, step number 1, prioritize jobs for ergonomic analysis. What do we mean by this? This prioritized list should be developed by the ergonomics team based on an initial facility tour, review of musculoskeletal disorder history, and data collected by employee service. Okay, that's step number 1. Step number 2 in workplace ergonomics process, that would be to conduct ergonomic analysis. Risk. This analysis will objectively measure risk for each job in the workplace and help you develop an ergonomics opportunity list. And step number 3, after conducting the ergonomics analysis, step number 3 would be developing an ergonomic opportunity list. Now, developing an ergonomics opportunity list allows you to prioritize company resources in order to effectively and efficiently reduce risk by putting the appropriate controls in place. And after developing an ergonomics opportunity list, we are now able to determine best solution with team approach. Here, a multidisciplinary team should be involved in determining the best controls for implementation. And step number 5, we need to obtain final approval and implement solution. If the improvement requires a significant capital expenditures, costs justify the solution to gain approval. Okay? And lastly, we need to evaluate the ergonomic improvement for effectiveness. Once improvements are in place, close the loop on the project by evaluating the ergonomics improvement and measuring its effectiveness. Okay, so this is how we go about with workplace ergonomics process. So next, we will discuss the workplace ergonomics risk factors. Take note that when we see risk factors, these are related to work activity, and ergonomics can make it more difficult to maintain the balance between musculoskeletal fatigue and recovery, and increase the probability that some individuals may develop an MSD. Now, the primary workplace risk factors to consider are high task repetition, forceful exertions, and we also have repetitive or sustained awkward postures. Okay, when we say high task repetition, many work tasks and cycles are repetitive in nature, right? And are frequently controlled by hourly or daily production targets and work processes. High task repetition, when combined with other risk factors such as high force and awkward postures, can contribute to the formation of musculoskeletal disorder. A job is considered as highly repetitive if the cycle time is 30 seconds or less. On the other hand, we have forceful exertions. Now, many work tasks require high force loads on the human body, and we cannot deny the fact. Muscle effort increases in response to high force requirements, which is true, increasing associated fatigue, which can lead to musculoskeletal disorder as well. And lastly, the last ergonomic risk factors that would be repetitive or sustained awkward postures. Now, awkward postures place excessive force on joints and overload the muscles and tendons around the affected joint. Joints of the body are most efficient when they operate closest to the mid-range motion of the joint. Now, risk of musculoskeletal disorder is increased when joints are worked outside of this mid-range repetitively or for sustained periods of time without adequate recovery time. Okay, so these are our workplace ergonomics risk factors that we need to avoid. Again, the risk factors would be high task repetition, forceful exertions, and sustained awkward postures. Okay, next, we will be discussing ergonomic risk assessment tools. So what are then the tools that ergonomists usually use if they conduct ergonomics assessment or risk assessment? Okay, one of the tools used by the ergonomists if they assess a risk is what we call visual lifting calculator. Now, applying a scientific evidence-based approach to your ergonomics process is very important. The goal is to identify ergonomics risk factors, quantify them, and then make measurable improvements to the workplace, ensuring that jobs and tasks are within workers' capabilities and limitations. Now, the best approach for doing that is to make ergonomics an ongoing process of risk identification and risk reduction based on objective scientific analysis of your workplace. And when we say visual lifting calculator, this is developed by the Washington State Department of Labor and Industries and based on NIOSH research related to the primary causes of back injuries. This lifting calculator can be used to perform ergonomics risk assessment on a wide variety of manual lifting and lowering tasks, and can also be used as a screening tool to identify lifting tasks which should be analyzed further using the more comprehensive NIOSH lifting equation, which is now our second risk assessment tool. Now, the NIOSH lifting equation is a tool used by occupational health and safety professionals to assess the manual material handling risks associated with lifting and lowering tasks in the workplace. This equation considers job task variables to determine safe lifting practices and guidelines. Now, the primary product of the NIOSH lifting equation is the recommended weight limit, or RWL, which defines the maximum acceptable weight or load that nearly all healthy employees could lift over the course of an 8-hour shift without increasing the risk of musculoskeletal disorder to the lower back. And in addition, the lifting index is calculated to provide a relative estimate of the level of physical stress and MSD risk associated with the manual lifting tasks evaluated. Okay? The next risk assessment tools that are usually used by the ergonomists, that would be REBA, which means Rapid Entire Body Assessment. Now, this tool uses a systematic process to evaluate whole body postural MSD and ergonomics design risks associated with job tasks. Now, in REBA, take note that a single-page form is usually used to evaluate required body posture, forceful exertions, type of movement or action, repetition, and coupling. Next, a score is then assigned for each of the following body regions. We have the wrists, the forearms, the elbows, the shoulders, the neck, the trunk, the back, the legs, and the knees. And after the data for each region is collected and scored, tables on the form are then used to compile the risk factors variables, generating a single score that represents that level of MSD risk. So aside from REBA, we also have what we call RULA, or which means Rapid Upper Limb Assessment. Now, when we say RULA, it is a diagnostic tool that assesses biomechanical and postural load requirements of job tasks or demands on the neck, trunk, and the upper extremities. In RULA, a single-page form is also used to evaluate required body posture, force, and repetition. Now, based on the evaluations, scores are then entered for each body region in section A for the arm and wrist, okay, and section B for the neck and the trunk. After the data for each region is collected and scored, tables on the forms are then used to compile the risk factor variables, generating a single score that represents the level of MSD risk, okay? So the next risk assessment tools that ergonomists usually use, that would be Liberty Mutual Manual Material Handling Tables, or also known as the SNOPE tables. Now, this table outlines design goals for various lifting, lowering, pushing, pulling, and carrying out tasks based on research done by Dr. Stover Snook and Dr. Vincent Ciriello at the Liberty Mutual Research Institute for Safety. Now, the table provides weight or force values for specific types of tasks that are deemed to be acceptable to a defined percentage of the population. And this is done by comparing data for each of the specific manual material handling tasks against the appropriate table. And finally, the last risk assessment tools used That would be the Washington State Ergonomic and MSD Risk Assessment Checklist. Now, this tool is designed to actually evaluate ergonomics risk factors, including awkward postures, highly repetitive motions, high hand force, repeated impacts, lifting, and hand-arm vibration. Okay, so these are the ergonomic risk assessment tools that are normally used by the ergonomists every time they assess a risk in the production area or in any area of the company where there are ergonomic problems evident. Okay, so next, domain of ergonomics, those are all the physical domains of ergonomics. And right now, we will discuss the other domain of ergonomics, which is the cognitive ergonomics. When we say cognitive ergonomics, this is concerned with mental processes such as perception, memory, reasoning, and motor response as they affect the interactions among humans and other elements of a system. Now, the relevant topics under cognitive ergonomics, that would be mental workload, decision making, skilled performance, human-computer interaction, human reliability, work stress, and finally, we have training as they may relate to systems design. And the last domain of ergonomics, that would be the organizational ergonomics. When we say organizational ergonomics, it is concerned with the optimization of socio-technical systems, including their organizational structures, policies, and processes. And relevant topics under organizational ergonomics, that would be communication, crew resource management, work design, design of working times, teamwork, participatory design, community ergonomics, cooperative work, new work paradigms, virtual organizations, telework, quality management as well. Okay, I think that's a good place to stop. So if you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button for the latest updates. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thanks again for joining today's session, Ergonomics 101, a work-from-home crash course. I'm Musa Akul, Notel's Director of Marketing. I'll be moderating today's session. As I just mentioned, we'll go for 30 minutes. We'll carve out about 5 minutes at the end for Q&A, so feel free to submit those through your Zoom portal, or feel free to email those to content@notel.com. Love to carve out a little bit of time at the end, get some of your questions. We've got a couple of our top workplace strategy experts on the line to talk about workplace strategy and ergonomics and much more. So thanks again for joining. Before we dive in and before I introduce the special guest, I would like to ask all of you on the line, if you don't mind, let's take a quick second and answer the poll. We're trying to collect some data about how people are adjusting to this situation, setting up your work from home stations. Hope everybody and their families are safe and sound during this time. Most people are seated at a desk or table. We'll let this go for another 10, 15 seconds and then get the show on the road. Thanks again for participating, all. Not a lot of people sitting at the kitchen counter. All right, 10 more seconds and we'll get this bad boy going. an overwhelming majority are seated at a desk or a table. I'm standing, and we'll see what our special guests are doing today. Thanks again for everyone for joining the poll. Let's do that. Let's get the show on the road. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our special guest. I'd like to introduce Uyam and Crystal, our senior workplace strategist and our head of workplace strategy and design on the West Coast. Ladies, thanks again for taking some time to join us today. Do you mind doing just a quick background and intro so we have some context on your expertise, and then I'll turn it over to you guys.
Sure. Thanks, Musa. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for dialing in today. I'm glad you all are able to make some time to talk about your ergonomics and health and wellness. So I'm Crystal Louie. I head up workplace strategy and design in San Francisco for the West Coast. And I'm joined today by Uyam Elgin, who is our senior workplace strategist and also our resident ergonomic expert.
Uyam, you want to just give a quick background on yourself?
Oh, yeah, of course. So I've been doing workplace design for a long time. So I'm a workplace strategist at Notel, but I also have expertise in ergonomics. So I wanted to extend to everyone and make sure that you're all staying healthy and safe at home.
Great. So we're here today to talk about ergonomics at home. And we've all been sheltering in place for a little while. Many of us, we've never worked from home, and this is the first time we're probably thinking about carving out that special space for you to do some heads down work. So this is what we wanted to deep dive into today with Uyam here as our ergonomic expert, and then we'll end the session today with a live Q&A. So as workplace strategists and designers, our job is we talk to clients and we figure out, what are their work patterns? What is their work environment? What do they need to be the most productive? And this is something that we do on a daily basis. And now all of a sudden we are thrown into this new social experiment, the unplanned social experiment called, the Great Lockdown. And now all of a sudden we're asked to have to, change our entire routine. We're completely upended, and all the activities that we used to do, whether it was going to the office, the gym, coffee shop, the bar, we're all going to have to do it in a single space. So whether you have 300 square feet or 3,000 square feet, not only is it time to get comfortable, but it's also time to do some workplace strategy edits to your own home. So a few weeks into shelter in place, Uyam and I actually received quite a lot of questions from friends and family and colleagues who may not be designers, needing help. How do we make our space more comfortable? I'm getting neck pain, shoulder pain. I don't really know. I miss my stand-up desk. I was getting a lot of DIY images of people kind of like hacking their own ergonomic workstation. I actually had a friend who sent me a picture of their footstool that they were using as their laptop riser. So we're all doing really creative things at home on how to get comfortable and how to feel, trying to recreate that space. So the things that we want to talk about are just sort of 4 simple things that we can do at home to sort of do that edit to our own home. So the first thing is, figuring out what is your main activity that you do, and carving out a special space for that. So whether it is you sitting at your desk and you needing to be on the call, or you're doing a lot of Zoom collaboration meetings, identifying what that main activity is, and then creating a primary workspace. So for me, I sit at my desk. I'm on calls a lot, so I need a relatively quiet space, but also I need a desk to be at. So identifying what that primary workspace is, and then also picking out 1 to 2 secondary workspaces, and those are more for ad hoc activities. So whether it's sitting on the sofa or stepping outside for some fresh air on your balcony, these are the things that give you some variety in your spaces, and you don't feel so sedentary in a single location. And then the third thing is, you now have new coworkers. Your coworkers are now your partners, your roommate, your children, your pets. Carving out a new routine is going to be really important, and setting a new schedule. having the typical 9 to 5 in the office is probably not what we're doing right now. I'm a new mother. I have a 4-month-old baby, and between my husband and I, we're looking at our schedules in blocks. So I, communicate that early on with my team that, I'm not going to be available early in the afternoon, but, I'm going to be turning on around 8 p.m. So being really transparent and communicating that to your teammates and your direct reports that the schedules of 9 to 5 are just a little bit different. And then lastly, which is why we're here, is making time for wellness. It's really important that you invest now to make sure that you're in a comfortable position, that you are thinking about your ergonomics, because we want to get comfortable for the long run. So from that, I'm going to pass it over to Uyam, who is our ergonomics specialist, to talk about some of the typical positions that you might be sitting in and how to improve it.
Thank you, Crystal, for kicking us off. I kind of want to first thank everyone for joining in, because I think this is really the first step you can take into your wellness and watching out for certain things that might give you discomfort. We're already going through a hard time, so thank you for carving out this time to pay attention to your wellness. So I applaud you all for doing that. I want to kick things off by talking about what ergonomics is and what it isn't, because I think there is a little bit of a misconception around ergonomics being really tied to tools, because when we hear about ergonomics, it's mostly around ergonomic chairs, ergonomic keyboards, and that might create a misconception around if you don't have these tools, you can't actually apply ergonomics to your work style. Or another misconception is having these tools and automatically assuming that then you're all healthy and you're good to go and you don't have to make any other changes. But ergonomics is actually an applied science, and it is about how you design and interact with things around you during your workday. That's really what keeps you efficient and safe and healthy. Crystal touched on having primary and secondary workspaces, and that is really important to set up so you can easily utilize these spaces without too much additional work or adding too much thought into it. The small poll that we had in the beginning about the main 3 different postures that we see people working at home, seated posture at the table, a more casual posture, maybe at a sofa or on the floor, or working out of maybe a kitchen counter or something that is a higher surface. I'm actually really happy to hear that most of you have that seated or table option available. That is definitely one of the most comfortable positions to be in for an extended period of time. But it's definitely important to also carve out those different postures that might be available to you, get a little bit creative about utilizing your space at home. And I would also encourage you to maybe take a note of all the different activities you do throughout your workday. These might be responding to emails, being on calls, putting together presentations, maybe ideating and thinking about things. So these are all different activities that you can assign to different postures. And the reason why I recommend assigning different activities to different postures is to really encourage and remind you to move around in your house and utilize your full house. Again, moving around is one of the healthiest things you can do throughout your day. So when you assign different activities to different postures, that's an instant reminder, because it doesn't come naturally. We all get really into our works and our focus time, and we might forget to move. But if a Zoom call is a trigger for you to move to your sofa, that's going to be a good reminder.
This is great. And by the way, for the poll results came back in this order. Number 1, I think, was about 65%. Number 2 was somewhere in the neighborhood of 30%, and only about less than 10% are sitting at the kitchen counter. I'm standing up right now. What about standing desks? Any thoughts on that?
For me, standing desks are actually most important, not because you can stand up, because realistically, the data shows that a lot of people don't actually utilize their desks to stand up throughout the day, which is extremely healthy, but unfortunately it doesn't really happen. But I think the height adjustable desks are really great because then you can adjust it to your posture. So based on your height and proportions, you can lower your desk or raise your desk a little bit so it's more fit to your needs, which we're going to touch more about when we go into neutral posture. And then you will see why it's important to be able to adjust your tools. That's why ergonomic tools are typically adjustable.
Very nice.
Okay, so neutral posture. If you're going to take away anything from this talk today, it is your neutral posture. Because once you get your neutral posture down and understand the importance of neutral posture, then you can actually utilize this in a lot of different postures. Of course, some of the more casual postures especially, maybe you can't fit all these points in, but at least that gives you a point of view of what to watch out for. So when we talk about neutral posture means we're utilizing our muscles minimally. We're not actively engaging our muscles too much. The reason for that is when we do office work, we do it for an extended period of time. Sure, some of the things we do might not be too challenging in a short period of time, but when you do it for a long time and repeatedly, it becomes very tiring. For example, think of something simple like raising your hand. That's very easy to do, but if I keep my hand up for an hour, I'm going to be very sore. So that is really the idea about keeping your posture neutral and not engaging your muscle too much. The first point is having a back, leaning your back on something. So if you are sitting in a chair, for example, sitting all the way back so you can lean your back on something. Our biggest muscle groups are in our back, and that's the most common complaint that you get from office workers, either upper or lower back pain or pain on your neck. And you can avoid all of this really by getting some support on your back. So when you lean back, what you're also doing is you're keeping your head over your shoulders. Then your body can neutrally just carry your weight really well without engaging too much muscle energy. Because if you think about it, if you start leaning forward, your head weight is going to weigh you back. So you're going to have to engage your upper and lower back muscles to hold yourself up. So definitely get some help, put your back and lean onto something. Second thing is planting your feet firmly on the ground. This really helps us really have that balanced support on our backs, because if your feet are dangling, if your chair is too high, you're just going to naturally start leaning forward so you can actually step on the ground, because that's going to feel kind of unbalanced and uneasy. So you want to make sure your feet are planted on the ground. If you don't have a height adjustable chair, not a problem. Two things you can do is, one, you can put some cushions on your back so you can actually lean forward a little bit without losing that back support. So you just reduce the seat depth a little bit. Or you can put something under your feet, something sturdy, maybe a sturdy box or some books. Make sure they're not sliding around too much so you feel firm and planted. The third thing is keeping a neutral shoulder posture. So when you put your hands on your lap, you will notice that will be the most neutral posture for your shoulders, and avoid shrugging them up. So anything that causes you to shrug, that's a moment to take and drop them back down and then feel more comfortable. Okay, so we are trying to keep our neutral posture. That's the main goal here. Two things that you need to pay attention to so you don't lose that posture, because you can set yourself up really nicely, but when you start working, you might start losing that posture a little bit. And it is caused by two main things. One is, where are my hands? So as I mentioned, when you put your hands on your lap, that is the most neutral posture for your shoulders. So try to make sure that you don't deviate too much from that. And one way you can do that is, if you have a separate keyboard, definitely utilize that so you can get it closer to your laps. Another thing you can do is, if you have a height adjustable desk, you might want to raise it a little bit more so your table becomes lower, so you're not picking up your arms too much when you're using your hands. And again, when you do that, make sure you're still abiding by all the 3 points that we talked about in the previous slide. Put something under your feet if you're raising your chair. The other thing is, you don't want to be reaching out too far, because again, if you're reaching for something, you're leaving the back of your chair, which is something we don't want to do. So bring your keyboard closer, whatever you need, bring them closer to your body so you're not reaching out too far. And make sure your tools are aligned, because again, if you put your keyboard here, then you're twisting your body and you're not keeping that neutral posture. So you want to keep straight, and you don't want to twist your body too much. The second thing is adjusting your gaze and making sure that your gaze is not deviating you from your neutral posture. The first thing to do is, if you're using a monitor, which I'm sure all of you are at least part of your day, make sure the top of your monitor is aligned with your line of sight. This might feel a little bit unnatural at first because most people actually have their monitors a little bit higher. But if you need to look up, then you're engaging a lot of your muscles. So you want to look either straight or a little bit down, ideally. So adjust your monitor a little bit so it meets that standard. Center your monitor, same as your keyboard, right? You don't want to be twisting your body or your neck repeatedly because that might injure you over time or give you discomfort. The other thing to watch out for is making sure that you can see your screen really well. Make sure you adjust how far your monitor is from you, and also maybe adjust your font size. So this will be really dependent on how well you can see and the quality of your monitor. So play around a little bit with that, because again, we're trying to avoid you getting close to your monitor and leaving the back of your chair. And that also goes along with the light levels you have. You don't want to have too much light pollution, especially when you're on your monitor, because if it's really bright around you, it's going to compete with the brightness of your laptop. So make sure maybe you have a bit of a dimmer environment when you're working on your monitor. And then maybe when you're taking notes or doing something more analog, make sure you support with natural light or artificial light so you have enough light levels.
Uyum, I'm using a stack of books, and right as I saw this, I was actually going to ask about the height of the computer relative to line of sight. I think I need to grab some more books to be able to follow this diagram on the right here.
Perfect.
Thanks for that.
Or a footstool.
Or a footstool. For those asking on the line, this is recorded. People are asking for the slides because they want to study these and get their postures right. I know some of us have been having a little bit of back and neck pain. So yes, we will send out the recording and the slides. And remember to keep those questions coming in. We'll carve out 5 minutes and about 5 minutes, and then we'll send you back.
Okay, let's do a little bit of a recap. This has been a lot of information, and what I really want to remind all of you is these are going to be behavioral changes. So it's going to happen over time. So make sure you have reminders for yourself, and also be very forgiving, because this is not meant to make you tense or like worry about one more thing. It's more of, oh, whenever I can, I just remind myself of these tips and tricks and just stay healthier so I'm not in pain, or I'm not too tired at the end of the day, so I can spend time with my family and, you know, still enjoy my time in the house. So let's recap. Main point, right? This is what we all want to remember. 3-point check for your neutral posture. Lean back all the way in your chair. Make sure you have a support for your back. Second thing is planting your feet firmly on the ground so you're not deviating from that neutral posture. Third is keeping your shoulders relaxed and keeping your hands close to your lap so you're not shrugging your shoulders or reaching out too far. These are the 3-point checks that can really improve your health and well-being. Maybe put it on a post-it note, put it next to your monitor that is aligned with your eyesight, so as a reminder for yourself to check on those 3 points. Invest in some tools if you can. Again, the main thing I would recommend getting is definitely a keyboard and a mouse that is separate from your laptop, because again, all the things that we talked about is very hard to accomplish with a laptop because your keyboard is attached to your monitor. So if you raise your laptop, you can't have your keyboard where you want it to be, or vice versa. If you can't get a separate keyboard or a mouse, because we are kind of limited right now, what I would recommend you to do is, again, using those different activities and maybe switching back and forth with postures. For example, if you're in a Zoom call, you can have your laptop a little bit higher so you have a good line of sight. But maybe when you're writing emails, you put your laptop on your lap, just switch back and forth just to alleviate that tension on yourself. Relieve pressure points. So this is like when you do a body check of if you have pain somewhere, try to identify if there is a pressure on that part of your body. For example, if you're leaning your wrist on your desk when you're working, you might start getting some pain or sharp pain down your arms, or your legs might be hurting because you don't have good circulation because your chair might be pushing against the soft tissue at the back of your legs. One thing to pay attention to is definitely use soft surfaces. So if you're sitting on a hard chair, maybe put a cushion down so it's soft. Make sure that your chair depth is not too deep so it's not pressuring at the back of your chair. Again, utilize a lot of cushions behind you so the chair depth is fitted to your needs. And then move often, however you can. You can just go grab a glass of water, which is also really healthy for you, or just move through different postures, or have your schedule so that you have maybe 1 minute to get up every hour.
Excellent. Before we've got some questions that I want to get to, but before we do that, let's do one more poll. So here at Notel, we've been working from home for almost a month, quite a while now. It's certainly an adjustment for many of us, for me, who usually like going to the office. So I would like to know, for those on the line, when this is all over, would you be inclined to work from home more often than you would? Or right now we're almost at 100%. Everyone wants to go back to the office. I can certainly sympathize. Let this run for another 30 seconds or so, and reminder to get those questions in. All right, we're almost 50-50. Interesting. So while we'll give this another 10 seconds or so, I am adjusting to work from home with a stack of books, and we've got a question about do-it-yourself hacks, Crystal and Uyam, that I want you guys to answer. This question is from Jeff. He says, what are some good do-it-yourself hacks if you don't have access to a standing desk? And with that, I'll end the poll. By the way, 49-51%. So we're about right down the middle. And ladies,
great experiment.
Yes,
I think two main things for your DIY workspaces: cushions and books. Those are the two very important things. Again, we want soft surfaces, but cushions also let us adjust the height of our chairs and height of the depth of the depth of our chairs. So those are really useful. And books you can utilize in getting things higher or lower. What I do is I don't have a standing height desk either, and I don't have a counter that I can use. So what I'm actually utilizing is I'm using my windowsill. I have a deep windowsill, and I stacked some Tupperware on top of each other, and I'm putting my laptop there. And I also raised my mouse surface a little bit with some books. So I'm actually, when I do want to stand up and work standing up for a little bit, that's what I'm utilizing. And I think similar options I've seen a lot from my coworkers and friends too.
Yeah, I just want to add to that. You know, we talked about primary and secondary workspaces. You know, I've identified my secondary workspace as a stand-up area, which is the kitchen counter. So, you know, sometimes it's about mobilization. So again, going back to Uyam's comment about like, just get the body moving, just get the blood circulating. You know, you don't necessarily need to make your one primary workstation do everything. Sometimes it's about moving around and just finding a different work surface that you may be able to create that height adjustable desk.
Great. What about Uyam? I think you just mentioned, and this is something I was wondering about as well. I'm using my laptop right now. I don't have a monitor or a mouse, which I'm very much regretting. Are there any vendors or you know, certain manufacturers that you all prefer to purchase your equipment from, or does it not matter as much?
The vendor doesn't matter as much, but I'm so glad you asked this question, because there are definitely a couple of things to watch out for when you're purchasing a keyboard and a mouse. For your keyboard, what's important is you don't want your keyboard to be wider than your shoulders. So depending on your proportions, that's something to watch out for. The reason for that is if you have a really wide keyboard, you're going to deviate. You're going to start opening up your arms. And again, that's engaging our muscles, which is what we don't want to do. So for example, if you don't need that like little number pad on the side, which a lot of keyboards have, if you don't really use that, get a keyboard that doesn't have that, so that your keyboard is not wider than it's supposed to be. And for your mouse, what I would watch out for is having a mouse that's big enough that your whole hand can sit on it, because we don't want your hand falling off your mouse. Again, that leads us to lean our wrist on the table, which is what causes carpal tunnel, right? That's one of the most common issues that office workers have. So maybe don't use one of those like small travel size mouse. Again, like for a short period of time, it's totally okay to use something like that. But for extended periods of time, you want a mouse that is big enough. And again, pay attention to not planting your arm too much when you're using your mouse, because you don't want to strain your arm by moving it side to side. Just like with your neck, you don't want any repetitive work. So you want to lift your arm a little bit so you can move your whole arm. That's actually easier on your body.
That's great. Let's do maybe one or two more, and then we'll wrap, send you all back to your day. Crystal, I think this is probably well suited for you. Question from John. He asks, what sort of work are you doing to think about the future of the office during this great experiment? Before Crystal, before I invite you in, just for John, we actually did a webinar on this a couple weeks ago with our CEO Amal Sarva and one of our workplace strategists about what we call the post-virus office. So feel free to poke around on the Knotel website. We have a great session with a lot of good perspective on what the office will look like when we're all allowed to go back. But Crystal, interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that we are talking about every single day. Again, going back to the idea of this is the great social experiment that we all didn't plan for, but now we're taking full advantage of. The first thing is about health and sanitation, to make sure that we are all in a safe place. Social distancing is more behavioral, but how can we create workspaces that encourages people to not be so in such close quarters? So I think the most immediate thing that we're looking at right now is density. We may not be putting people into the amount of square footage that we used to. So we're probably going to start looking at increasing density and having fewer people come into the office. The second thing is, I think, just being more mindful of how we're using our workspaces, creating, touch points in which people can, wash their hands, use hand sanitizers, and just being more efficient in sharing workspaces. But I think the larger thing is more going to be around density and how we have previously looked at putting people in the office, and now, post-COVID, and also thinking about, remobilization, what that density looks like.
Excellent. We've got just about a minute left, so I want to wrap up. I know there's more questions coming in. We will respond back to all of you, but also if you've got questions on ergonomics or workplace strategy, feel free to email the ladies, Uyam and Crystal. Thank you all for taking some time out of your day to join us. Really, I learned a ton. I'll be using a lot of this, hopefully solve some of this back pain. If you have general questions about Knotel or want to learn more, feel free to email content@knotel.com, poke around on our website. I will say we are doing another session next week on Crystal, what you call the great work from home experiment. We've started to collect some data from not only internal colleagues, but others as well. We're going to share some of that data next week. So be on the lookout for that. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Hope we added a little bit of value to your day. Hope you're staying safe, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for dialing in. Bye-bye.
Ergonomics is much broader than just the right chair to sit on.
Ergonomics is concerned with the interaction between people and the products and systems that they use.
Ergonomics is making sure that products are appropriate for people.
All around us, we see things that people have designed to make our lives simpler, more productive, more comfortable. And yet sometimes we find ourselves complaining about things like the microwave that's difficult to figure out, the shears that are hard to cut with, or the seat that doesn't fit our bodies. Ergonomics aims to solve these kinds of problems. Named after the Greek words ergo and nomos, meaning the natural laws of work, ergonomics is about matching products and tasks with people. Ergonomics is a relatively new concept. In the early days of industrialisation, getting the job done was more important than the well-being of the worker. Around the 1940s, people began to realise that work could be done more efficiently if the equipment was easier and safer to use. The science of ergonomics was born.
A key part of ergonomics is the usability of the systems we use. So when we come up to a product or system, we need to know what to do. We need to know that it fits us physically and will efficiently get the results we want. Ergonomists will configure the whole system so it works for the range of people that are going to use it, whether they're children, adults, whomever.
Many gadgets and appliances have an impressive array of features, but they can be difficult to figure out, even if you still have the instruction manual. This is frustrating, and it means that many features are wasted because the user sticks to the simplest tasks. To make things understandable, we need to consider the way people think and interpret the information. This can be as simple as using red for stop and green for go, because that's what people are used to. It also means designing so that people can do the obvious. This video camera lets us do what comes naturally, so it requires no detailed instructions. In this design, the places you might want to push to close the camera are marked with warnings to the contrary. The right place to push is even hidden under the strap. So layout is another important factor. On this stove, it's fairly simple to relate the layout of the controls to the layout of the hot plates. Here, the layout of the controls is oriented differently to the hot plates. We have to look more carefully to see which goes with which. In the control room of a power plant or on the bridge of a container ship, there's simply no room for confusion. The signals and warnings must be easy to see and interpret, or the consequences could be disastrous.
Sit. Good boy, eh? Good.
It's your turn to feed the dog. Lucky for him, your hands are the right size for the handle on the can opener. And you're strong enough to twist the knob. But if it was your little sister's turn, or your granddad's, the dog may well be hoping for the day that you're back on the roster. The physical fit between us and our man-made environment affects us all the time. How well do our clothes fit the size and shape of our bodies? How comfortable is our furniture? Why are some things easier to grip and handle than others? How well do we fit into our workspaces? Are we working at a comfortable height? Can we reach the controls on the machinery? Are they easy to push and turn? can we see what we're doing? If our equipment doesn't cater for our physical requirements, even something as simple as adjusting a car radio can be a difficult and dangerous task. In order to match people physically with the products and work systems they use, we need information about people's characteristics. This information comes from the field of anthropometry. The word anthropometry comes from the Greek words anthropo and metrikos, meaning the measurement of humans. Ergonomics texts like this one contain anthropometric tables that describe the size of different parts of our bodies.
We might be interested in height if we're designing a doorway. We might be interested in reach if we're designing a shelf depth.
Humans come in a range of shapes and sizes, so the anthropometric tables provide data for the small people in a group, known as the 5th percentile, the centre of the range, or the 50th percentile, and the larger end of the scale, or the 95th percentile.
If we're designing a doorway, we need to know the very big person. If we're designing how deep a shelf is, we probably want to know what the reach is of the very small person.
But it isn't always that simple. To design a seat that suits most people, we need to consider the lower leg length of smaller people for the seat height and the hip breadth of larger people for the seat width. Now, what about the table? If we make it too high, most people have to raise their forearms and arch their wrists in order to reach their plate. So here we need to match seat height, table height, and the sitting height of the user. Factors such as age, gender, and even ethnic background influence the size of our bodies. So when we're using anthropometric data, we need to take into account the population we're designing for. Whenever we handle objects or equipment, we need to use a certain amount of force. To find out how much force people can comfortably exert in different situations, designers need information about the biomechanics of the human body. Say we're designing a pedal mechanism. We need data that tell us how hard people can push with their legs at different angles. For a knob or handle, we can look up how people's turning strength is affected by the handle diameter. The handles on tools are designed to be used with a neutral wrist position, as shown here, because this gives us maximum grip strength and comfort. But even the best designs can't compensate for the way people use a product. These awkward postures reduce our strength and increase the risk of injury. This is a healthy sitting posture, in which our spine forms an S-shaped curve. Often we slump into a C shape because this is easier than sitting up straight. This puts unhealthy pressure on the vertebrae in our spine. But even if we are conscious of our posture, we eventually get tired. This is because the human body is not designed for maintaining a fixed position or for performing repetitive tasks. The way to overcome this problem is by taking regular breaks. So ergonomics can depend as much on the attitude of the user as on the skills of the designer.
In designing new products, we need to use ergonomics to make sure we get the right result, that we get products and systems that work for people in the way they expect. Of course, there are other constraints that we have to work with when we're designing new products. The product we're going to use will have to be manufactured at a certain cost and use certain processes and materials. The designer's role is to balance all these requirements out, but the key thing is to keep incorporating the ergonomic information, aspects of the design that are important for people and the way they'll use the product.
These products look fairly simple, but they pose quite a challenge in terms of ergonomic design because they have to suit many different people.
This is more than just a can opener. This is part of a food storage and preparation system. The range of people that might use a can opener can be very broad. The question is, can one solution that's not adjustable fit every situation and do the best job possible?
This model is familiar to many people, but it requires considerable strength on the handle to grip and puncture the can, and strength in the fingers to drag the blade through the metal. But how much strength can we expect the user to have?
The source of that information might be a data book like this. Body space here will tell us something about grip strength. So ergonomists have done research about the strength of people gripping things, but what about that twisting action? I'm not aware of anthropometric data or ergonomics data that will give us that information about how hard people can twist a wing nut like this. For this, we might have to do some testing. People who've done this have come up with alternatives to this.
This model has large handles that are easier to grip and a gear system and rotary blade that cuts the can more easily.
That means a bigger range of people can do the job. That's design. That's good design.
Now, what about understandability? Here's another similar can opener.
We'll have the black and the white. Same sort of product, same configuration, nicely styled. There's been a designer involved here. If I try to use this can opener in the same way I would expect to use this one, I'll be making a mistake. I'll get frustrated and I won't get the can open because it operates a different way. In this case, the packaging is also providing some information that's going to be useful to the user.
The package also carries a warning because this can opener removes the whole lid, leaving a sharp edge that's not immediately obvious.
One has to ask, though, what happens when the packaging is thrown away and we're just left with this in the top drawer of the kitchen?
Adjustability is often used by designers to allow us to cope better with the range of users we're trying to design for.
This is more important in some situations than others.
If we're travelling on a train, we're only doing that for a short length of time, so the adjustability of the seat is not that critical. With office chairs, which we're using for up to 8 hours a day, for every day of the week, then we need to consider adjustability as a solution to the problem. Also in offices, people change workstations quite regularly, so the one set of furniture might be used by many people.
If the height of the desk is fixed, and usually it is, we need to adjust the seat height to suit the height of the work surface. If we're typing, we need an angle of around 90 degrees at the elbow, the most comfortable position for our forearms. If this seat height is too high for our lower leg, we can tilt the seat forward to relieve pressure under our thighs. And if we're still not comfortable, we can use a footrest to adjust the height of the floor. It's also useful to have an adjustable backrest. Correctly positioned, the backrest helps us to maintain a healthy spinal curve when we lean back in the seat. By introducing extra components, adjustability often increases cost. In this luxury car, the electronically controlled driver's seat and steering column can be adjusted in various ways. Notice how the layout of the controls also makes them easy to understand. And for the ultimate inconvenience, different users can set their favourite position. These features make for a comfortable ride, but they come with a hefty price tag. In the sporting arena, the way we fit with our equipment can mean the difference between winning and losing. This was the inspiration for a new type of cycle shoe designed by former triathlete Ian Beryl.
The idea behind this project was to have a look at the task of triathlon, in particular the transition system between swimming and the ride leg.
Many triathletes choose to have their cycle shoes pre-clipped onto their bikes. But with the current shoe design, it's very difficult to get your foot into the shoe quickly while you're trying to race. Ian talked to triathletes about this problem.
The most important finding was that the shoe has to be easy to close. When you come out of the transition system, you're tired because you've been swimming. When you're tired, you don't think as straight. The task of doing up the Velcro strap, putting your foot in, becomes much harder than you think it should be.
Ian then came up with several alternative design options. This is a prototype of the design that offered the best combination of ergonomics, manufacturability, and high-tech good looks.
As per the current triathlon system, the shoe is pre-clipped onto the bike pedal. The difference in this system is that you can put your foot straight in the shoe as it hangs like this, quite an easy task. The way this is possible is through these cables. They enable a huge opening to allow for the person to put their foot in basically without looking. Then once the foot is in the shoe, it's just a simple case of pulling this lever and the whole upper of the shoe clasps the foot and is tightly set in.
Importantly, you can hear and feel the lever click into its home position so you know when the shoe is secure. Another issue is one of fit. In doing up the Velcro strap, riders can make their shoes too tight or too loose. This creates discomfort which can slow the riders down.
With this shoe, it contains 3 Velcro straps. Before the race, you put your foot in the shoe, you do up the 3 straps to the exact tension that you require, and then when you do shoe up in the race, it'll close to that exact tension.
Ian's shoe certainly looks like a promising solution. Now he faces the challenge of finding a backer who will help take his design from prototype to product.
All right, guys. So by tomorrow, I will do the last lecture, the ergonomic. Okay. So by tomorrow, I will see you again. Okay. Turn on for those who are available. Let me see. Okay. So thank you, Noel, Kelvin, and Farah. I will meet you again by tomorrow for our last chapter. Okay. Thank you.